My sister RSVP'd yes plus 21 to my 40-person wedding without asking. We're family, she said. You can't exclude us. I didn't argue. I called the venue and removed 21 seats. When her family arrived dressed up and the host said, "I'm sorry, your names aren't on the list," my sister RSVP'd yes plus 21 to my 40-person wedding, not +1, not +2, plus 21. She wrote it in pink glitter pen across the RSVP card like she was announcing a military invasion sponsored by Barbie. Underneath, she added, "Don't panic, nerd. We're family." I stared at the card for approximately 47 seconds. Then I adjusted my glasses, opened Excel, and created a new spreadsheet. Because my name is Grace Miller, I'm 32 years old, a senior accountant, plus size, nearsighted, and according to my younger sister Madison, I have the personality of a tax audit wearing sensible shoes. Madison is 5'8", blonde, beautiful, and has somehow moved through life under the impression that being photogenic is a transferable professional skill. She has called me nerd since we were teenagers, not affectionately. At 16, she introduced me to her boyfriend by saying, "This is Grace. She does homework voluntarily." At 21, she told her friends I had the body type of a beanbag chair with Wi-Fi. At 27, she asked me if my glasses were medical or just part of the librarian cosplay. And now, at 32, I was getting married before her second marriage had made it past the 18-month mark. This bothered Madison more than she would admit, especially because my fiancé, Daniel, was handsome. Not handsome in the social media way Madison understood, where a man needed visible abs, a leased BMW, and several photographs of himself staring seriously at mountains. Daniel was 6 feet tall, warm brown eyes, dark hair, broad shoulders, and had the unfair ability to look good carrying groceries. He was also kind, which, after growing up with Madison, was so attractive to me that he could have looked like a haunted turnip, and I still might have proposed. Our wedding was intentionally small, 40 people. That included us. We had rented a beautiful little greenhouse restaurant outside the city. Ivy climbed the brick walls. Tiny lights hung from the glass ceiling. There was one long dining room overlooking a garden, and the chef built a custom dinner menu for exactly 38 guests plus bride and groom. No giant reception, no 12 bridesmaids, no champagne tower, no DJ screaming, "Make some noise." I work in accounting. I spend 45 hours a week explaining to adults why miscellaneous is not an acceptable description for a $14,000 business expense. I did not want my wedding to feel like an airport terminal during a cancellation. Daniel agreed. 40 people, he said when we booked the venue. The people we actually love. 39, I corrected. He blinked. Your cousin Tyler. Right. 39 people we love and Tyler. Perfect. Then Madison received her invitation. 3 days later she called me. Nerd. Madison. So I got your wedding invitation. I know, I mailed it. You only gave me 4 seats. I glanced at my computer. Madison, her husband Trent, and their 2 children. Yes. She laughed. Actually laughed. Like I'd told her we were serving gravel. Grace, I have people. You have 4 seats. I have friends. I'm aware. Trent has friends. Condolences. She ignored that. And obviously Aunt Melissa and Uncle Rick are coming with us. They were not invited. Madison gasped. They're family. They have spoken to me twice in 10 years. That doesn't matter. Uncle Rick called me Brenda at Christmas. He's bad with names. My name has been Grace since birth. He's busy. Doing what? Forgetting relatives? Madison made an irritated noise. Then she began listing people. Her best friend Kayla, Kayla's boyfriend. Her neighbor, Stephanie, Stephanie's husband. A woman named Brooke who apparently did Madison's eyebrows, Trent's cousin's girlfriend. They're old neighbors from Cedar Lane. Madison's yoga instructor, a woman she knew from something called wine Pilates, which I did not ask about because I wanted to remain eligible for heaven. Then she mentioned Derek. I paused. Derek? My ex. Your ex-boyfriend, Derek? We're friends now. Madison, you want to bring your ex-boyfriend to my wedding? He's hilarious. You once keyed his car. That was 2018, people grow. You wrote cheater on the hood. With washable paint. You told Dad it was industrial enamel. There was silence. Then she said, anyway, he's coming. No. Oh, come on, what's one more person? We're currently at 17 more people. And Tara. Who is Tara? My hairdresser. No. You'll love her. I don't even know her. Exactly. Opportunity. No. And Mrs. Wilkins. I removed my glasses and pressed 2 fingers between my eyes. Your former neighbor, Mrs. Wilkins? She adores weddings. She's 84 and still knows how to party. She reported me to the homeowners association because my recycling bin was visible from the street. She's complicated. Madison. What? You are invited with Trent and the kids. That is all. She gave a little laugh. That laugh, the one she used when she had already decided rules were for people who bought generic handbags. Grace, relax. You always get so weird about numbers. I'm an accountant. Exactly. Numbers are literally my profession. God, nerd, it's a wedding, not quarterly reporting. It is a 40-person wedding. So make it 60. No, Grace. No. Her voice changed, less playful, more offended princess being informed the kingdom had run out of swans. You can't exclude people. I absolutely can. That is one of the central mechanics of an invitation. We're family. Yes. So my people are your people. No. That sounds like something written on a cult brochure. She huffed. Then came the sentence I would remember for the rest of my life. You're going to regret being so uptight. I looked at the spreadsheet on my screen. I had spent 20 years regretting being too accommodating, so I said, noted, and hung up. A week later, her RSVP arrived. Madison Plantrent Could Quit is 21. 21. She had counted them. She had actually assembled a roster. There was a second note underneath. We're family. You can't exclude us. Don't be boring. I called the venue. Our coordinator, Sophie, answered. Grace, how are you? I have a math problem. You're the accountant. This feels backwards. My sister thinks she has a plus 21. There was silence. Then Sophie said, I'm sorry. Did you say plus 21? Yes. Is she bringing a minor league baseball team? Worse, relatives. Sophie laughed. I explained everything. She checked our contract. Your final guest count remains 40. We haven't added any seats. Excellent. Do you want me to contact your sister? No. Are you sure? Very. What should we do if she arrives with 21 extra people? I looked down at Madison's glitter-covered RSVP. Then I smiled. Do you have a guest list? Yes. Do you have a host? Yes. Does your host know how to say, I'm sorry, your name isn't on the list? Sophie paused. Then very slowly she said, Grace, I think you and I are going to get along extremely well. To understand why I didn't argue with Madison, you need to understand that I had been arguing with her since approximately 1999. Madison was the pretty sister. I was the smart sister. Those labels sound harmless until a family starts treating them like job descriptions. Madison was expected to be useful. When Madison was 16, Mom paid for professional highlights because confidence matters. When I was 16, Mom bought me SAT preparation books because your future matters. When Madison wrecked her first car backing into a decorative fountain, Dad said she had been overwhelmed. When I forgot to bring napkins to a barbecue, Dad said, Grace, you're usually the responsible one. I became the family calculator. I did everyone's taxes. I reviewed leases. I compared mortgage rates. I fixed budgets. I explained credit card interest to Madison every 9 months like a seasonal migration pattern. She once sent me a photograph of a letter from the IRS and wrote, Nerd emergency. Make government go away. I solved the problem. She responded with a heart emoji. That was the closest thing to payment I received. When Trent started a landscaping company, I set up his bookkeeping system for free. When Mom and Dad refinanced their house, I spent 3 evenings reviewing paperwork. When Madison wanted to know whether she could afford a luxury SUV, I created a detailed budget proving she could not. She bought it anyway. 2 months later, she called me crying because the payment was randomly enormous. It is the exact amount written in the contract. I didn't read that part. It's the payment schedule. There were so many numbers. That is what car loans are made of. Can you fix it? For years, the answer was always yes. And Madison repaid me by treating my life like a comedy routine, especially my appearance. I've always been plus size. It stopped bothering me somewhere around 30, after I realized most of the people criticizing women's bodies were either trying to sell something or had the emotional sophistication of a parking meter. I dress well, I have good hair, I like bright lipstick, I have thick black glasses because without them the world looks like an impressionist painting. Daniel loves me exactly as I am. Madison found this suspicious. The first time she met him, she pulled me aside. He's really hot. Yes. No, I mean really hot. Thank you for the forensic analysis. She stared at me. How did you meet him? At Nora's birthday. And he approached you? Yes. First? Yes. Like, voluntarily? I looked at her. Did you suffer a head injury? I'm just surprised. I know. She realized too late what she'd admitted. That was Madison. Cruelty wrapped in concern tied with a satin ribbon. When Daniel proposed, she screamed louder than I did. Then she immediately asked to see the ring. Then she asked how much it cost. Then whether it was real. Then whether Daniel had some kind of secret fetish for accountants. Daniel heard that one. He smiled and said, Absolutely. Nothing gets me going like a properly reconciled balance sheet. I nearly choked on my drink. Madison did not understand sarcasm when it was aimed at her. That became one of Daniel's favorite hobbies. Wedding planning made everything worse. Madison wanted to be maid of honor. I chose my best friend Priya. Madison responded like I had appointed a raccoon. Priya? Yes. But I'm your sister. You also told everyone at my 30th birthday that my Spanx deserved employee benefits. That was funny. Priya didn't. So Priya is maid of honor. Madison looked devastated, for almost 6 full seconds. Then she switched tactics. Fine. I'll still help you make the wedding less. What does that mean? Less beige. The invitations are emerald green. Emotionally beige. She hated everything I chose. 40 guests? Boring. Family-style dinner? Cheap-looking. No bridesmaids beyond Priya? Sad. No bouquet toss. Anti-fun. No choreographed first dance? Honestly, Grace, are you even trying? She offered to upgrade my dress. I declined. She suggested I lose 25 pounds before the wedding just for photographs. Daniel happened to be sitting beside me when she said that. He lowered his newspaper. Madison? Yes? I have a question. Okay. Do you enjoy having teeth? She blinked. I laughed for 5 straight minutes. Things became quiet after that. Too quiet. Then Priya sent me a screenshot. It came from a group chat she shared with one of Madison's acquaintances. The chat was called Operation Nerd Wedding. I stared at the screen. Priya texted, "You may want wine before reading." I replied, "I'm an accountant. I have vodka in the freezer for audit season." The messages were incredible. Madison had invited 21 people, not accidentally, not because she misunderstood. She was planning a prank. Her idea was to arrive with an enormous group, overwhelm our tiny reception, take over 2 tables, and film my reaction. One message read, "Grace will malfunction when she sees everyone." Another, "She probably has assigned seat numbers in a spreadsheet, lol." I did. They were color-coded. Madison had written, "Imagine nerd trying to tell Aunt Melissa she can't sit down. I'll die." Then, "Everybody dress formal. We're making this a whole thing." And finally, "Bring gifts so she can't kick anyone out without looking insane." I read every message. Then I sent Priya one reply. "Interesting." She called instantly. "Interesting? That's all you have to say." "Yes, Grace. She is planning a coordinated invasion of your wedding." I noticed. She called it Operation Nerd Wedding. I noticed. She invited Derek? I know. Her ex-boyfriend? I know. She invited her hairdresser. Apparently Tara is lovely. Grace. I leaned back in my office chair. Behind me were 3 monitors, 2 framed accounting certifications, and a mug Daniel had given me that said, "Be audacious. Reconcile your receipts." Priya? Yes. You know what's fun about being a nerd? What? Documentation. There was a pause. Then Priya began laughing. Oh no. Oh yes. I did not confront Madison. That confused her. She sent me messages over the next 2 weeks like she was poking a suspiciously quiet animal with a stick. "You okay, nerd?" I replied, "Great." "Nope." Then, "Hope venue is flexible, lol. They're very professional." Apparently this made her nervous. Mom called 3 days before the wedding. "Grace, your sister says you're being difficult." "About?" "Guests. She has 4 seats. She says there's room." "There isn't. Can't the venue squeeze in a few more chairs?" 21 chairs? Mom went quiet. "So you know?" "Yes. She said she told you. She told me she was bringing them. That is not the same as me agreeing." "Grace, don't make this a family fight." I almost admired the efficiency. Madison creates problem. Grace establishes boundary. Boundary becomes family fight. A classic. "Mom, the venue holds 40 for our setup. But Aunt Melissa wasn't invited. She'll be hurt. She doesn't know my fiance's last name." "That isn't the point." "What is the point?" "The point is your sister is excited. So am I. I'm the bride." Mom sighed. That sigh had raised me. "Sometimes you can be very rigid." "Correct. This is your wedding." "Also correct. You don't want to look back and regret excluding family." I'm much more worried about looking back and seeing 21 strangers eating the food I paid for. That ended the call. Wedding morning arrived. I woke up at 6. For the first time in months, I wasn't nervous. I put on my robe, drank coffee, ate toast, reviewed absolutely no spreadsheets. Priya arrived at 7 with pastries and champagne. At 8:30, my hairdresser finished my hair. At 9:15, my makeup was done. At 10, I put on my dress. And when I looked in the mirror, I cried. Not because I looked thinner. I didn't. Not because my glasses somehow vanished. They didn't. I'd chosen a gorgeous pair of dark green frames specifically for the wedding. I cried because I looked like myself. My dress hugged my waist, flowed over my hips, and made me feel glamorous without disguising a single thing Madison had spent years telling me I should hide. Priya stood behind me. "You look incredible." "I look expensive." "You look like you're about to audit God." Materiality threshold would be terrifying. She hugged me carefully. Daniel cried when he saw me. Actually cried, then whispered, "Your glasses are extremely hot." I whispered back, "Wait until you see my depreciation schedules." Our ceremony was perfect. Short, funny, warm. 38 guests. No problems. Madison arrived with Trent and the children 15 minutes before the ceremony. Only them. She was smiling. Too much. She kissed my cheek. "You look good, nerd." "Thank you. I didn't think that dress shape would work." "There she is." She smiled wider. "Big surprise later." "I'm sure." Then she floated away. At 5:30, after photographs and cocktails, guests began moving toward dinner. That was when I heard it. Music. Loud music. From the parking lot. Priya looked toward the entrance. "What is that?" Daniel listened. "Is that Party in the USA. Yes, it was. A white party bus rolled into the parking lot. A party bus. The door opened. People began climbing out. 1, 2, 5, 10, 14, 20, 21, all dressed like they were attending the Met Gala sponsored by a suburban outlet mall. Aunt Melissa wore sequins. Uncle Rick had a velvet blazer. Madison's yoga instructor was wearing something with feathers. Mrs. Wilkins had a fur stole despite it being 72 degrees. Derek, the ex, emerged wearing a burgundy tuxedo. Tara the hairdresser carried a wrapped gift the size of a microwave. Someone had brought balloons. One balloon said, "Bride Tribe." I was the bride. I had never seen the person holding it. Madison rushed outside. "Oh my God, you came!" She was performing surprise for her own guests. The woman deserved regional theater. Then she looked through the glass doors at me. She grinned. That grin said, "Got you, nerd." I lifted my champagne. She lifted hers. Then the group approached the entrance. Our host, Marco, stood behind a small podium. Marco was about 50, elegant, silver-haired, and possessed the calm expression of a man who had spent decades telling wealthy people they could not bring outside alcohol onto private property. Madison stepped forward. "Hi, they're with us." Marco smiled. "Wonderful. Names, please?" Madison laughed. "Oh, they're all with me." "I understand. Names?" She waved at the group. "Melissa and Rick Thompson, Kayla Porter, Jason something?" "Reeves," Jason said. "Right, Reeves. Brooke, Tara, Derek, Stephanie." Marco checked the list, then checked it again, then looked up. "I'm sorry, their names are not on the guest list." Silence. Madison blinked. "What?" "The reception is private. I can only admit registered guests." She laughed. No, they're my plus 21. Marco looked at her. I could see him processing that sentence. "You're plus 21? "Yes." "I'm afraid your invitation includes you, your husband, and your 2 children." "I RSVP'd for 21 more." "Yes, ma'am, we were informed." Her smile disappeared. "You were informed?" "Yes. And they are not on the list." Behind her, 21 formally dressed people began looking around. Aunt Melissa whispered loudly, "I told you this was weird." Uncle Rick said, "I thought her name was Brenda." I nearly inhaled an olive. Madison turned toward me. "Grace!" Every head in the reception turned. I waved. She marched inside. Marco moved politely in front of her entourage. "Guests on the list may enter. Others will need to remain outside." Madison stormed across the room. "What did you do?" I sipped champagne. "Got married." "You removed their seats." "No." "Yes, you did." "I never added them." "I RSVP'd." "You cannot RSVP other people to someone else's wedding." "They came all this way." "Mrs. Wilkins lives 11 minutes away." "Mrs. Wilkins lives 11 minutes away." "Mrs. Wilkins lives 11 minutes away." Mrs. Wilkins shouted from outside, 14 with traffic. Daniel turned away because he was laughing too hard. Madison's face went red. "This is humiliating. Imagine that. You knew they were coming?" "Yes. And you let them come anyway. You told me I couldn't exclude them. You should have called me." "I did tell you no. You didn't tell me you were serious." That sentence was so Madison I almost applauded. "You thought when I said no I meant surprise me with transportation? You're being vindictive. Madison, you rented a party bus to prank me at my wedding." The room became very quiet. Her eyes widened. "How do you know that?" Priya made a small choking sound into her champagne. I smiled. Operation Nerd Wedding. Madison froze. Outside, Derek slowly lowered his phone. Aunt Melissa said, "Operation what?" Madison turned toward her entourage. "No, it wasn't." I pulled out my phone. She stared at it like I had drawn a weapon. "Grace," I read. "Grace will malfunction when she sees everyone." Several guests gasped. I continued. "Imagine Nerd trying to tell Aunt Melissa she can't sit down. I'll die." Aunt Melissa's mouth dropped open. I looked up. Good news. I didn't tell her. Marco did. Marco gave a tiny professional nod from the door. I kept reading. "Bring gifts so she can't kick anyone out without looking insane." Tara the hairdresser looked down at her microwave-sized package. "What the hell, Madison?" Madison's voice became shrill. "It was supposed to be funny." Derek frowned. "You said Grace invited us after changing her mind." Madison whipped around. "Well, you told me she specifically asked if I could come because she thought it would be hilarious that we were still friends." I stared at him. "I have never discussed your existence with anyone voluntarily." Derek nodded. "Fair." Kayla stepped forward. "You said there'd be a table." "There was supposed to be." "No," I said. "There was never supposed to be a table." Uncle Rick raised his hand. "Is there food?" Everyone looked at him. "What?" he said. "I skipped lunch." Marco, without changing expression, said, "There is a diner approximately 6 minutes east." Mrs. Wilkins nodded. "Their pie is excellent." The rebellion began. Stephanie glared at Madison. "You made me get a babysitter." Brooke said, "I bought a dress." Tara lifted the giant gift. "This is a stand mixer." I blinked. "You brought me a stand mixer?" "She told me yours was broken." "My stand mixer is fine." Tara slowly turned toward Madison. "You owe me $319. Madison looked like civilization had personally betrayed her. Mom came rushing over. "What is happening?" I handed her my phone. She read the messages. Her face changed. Madison. It was a joke. Mom looked at the 21 people outside. You rented a bus? It was discounted. Trent finally spoke. I told you this was a bad idea. Madison spun on him. You said it would be legendary. I meant legendary like the Titanic. Daniel lost control. He laughed so hard he had to put his champagne down. Then Derek started laughing. Then Priya. Then someone at table 3. Within seconds, half the room was laughing. Not cruelly. Not at the people outside. At the sheer absurdity of Madison trying to weaponize 21 human beings against an accountant who had spent her entire career rejecting unauthorized expenses. She looked at me. You think this is funny? I considered it. Yes. Grace. You tried to crash a 40-person wedding with 21 extra guests to watch me panic over seating. You're obsessed with numbers. Yes. I spread my arms. I am an accountant. There was applause. Actual applause. My boss, Mr. Chen, stood up. Best control environment I've ever seen. More laughter. I pointed toward him. That man signs my performance reviews. Madison looked ready to explode. You're choosing strangers over family. I stared at her. What strangers? She gestured around wildly. These people. These are my invited guests. No, I mean them. She pointed outside. I looked. Those are your strangers. Derek raised his hand. Technically, I'm an ex. Thank you, Derek. No problem, Grace. Great dress, by the way. Madison made a sound like a tea kettle. Then she did something even better. She grabbed one of the printed seating charts from the welcome table. There have to be empty seats. She began counting. 1, 2, 3. Don't. I can move people. You cannot. The kids can sit together. They already are. We can squeeze chairs. No. We can put some people at the bar. No. Grace, use your brain. I smiled. My brain is what got us here. Daniel murmured, I love you so much. Madison slapped the seating chart onto the table. This is the most selfish thing you've ever done. That finally killed my laughter. Because beneath the party bus, the glitter RSVP, the burgundy tuxedo, and Mrs. Wilkins recommending pie, there it was. The old script. Madison takes. Grace gives. Madison pushes. Grace adjusts. Madison insults. Grace laughs it off. And if Grace ever says no, Grace is selfish. I looked at my sister. You know what's selfish? She opened her mouth. I continued. Calling me nerd for 20 years because making me feel small made you feel funny. Her expression changed. Grace. Mocking my weight. Mocking my glasses. Mocking my job until you need free tax help. Mocking my wedding because it isn't flashy enough for you. Mom looked down. Madison crossed her arms. Oh my God. So now we're doing childhood trauma? No, we're doing current events. A few people laughed quietly. You planned to embarrass me today. It was a prank. You wanted me upset. No, I wanted you to loosen up. You brought your ex-boyfriend, your hairdresser, your neighbors, your yoga instructor, Aunt Melissa, Uncle Rick, and an 84-year-old woman who once reported my recycling bin to city authorities. Mrs. Wilkins called from outside. Ho away, dear. Thank you, Mrs. Wilkins. You wanted 21 people to watch me scramble because you thought me caring about my wedding would be funny. Madison stared at me. I took a breath. And the truth is, I would have scrambled once. She said nothing. 5 years ago, I would have paid for extra meals. I would have apologized to you while fixing the problem you created. My voice stayed calm. But I'm not doing that anymore. Madison's eyes filled with angry tears. So you're kicking me out? No. I pointed toward her assigned table. Your seat is right there. She blinked. What? You're invited. And them? No. She stared at me. That was the part she couldn't process. I wasn't punishing her. I wasn't screaming. I wasn't throwing her out. I had simply refused to rearrange reality around her behavior. And somehow that bothered her more than any dramatic revenge could have. Behind her, Trent checked his watch. So, are we eating soon? Madison whipped around. You're taking her side. I am taking the side with dinner. Their 9-year-old daughter raised her hand. I'm also on dinner's side. I pointed toward my niece. Future management material. My nephew asked, Can I have cake? Absolutely. Madison stared at her own family abandoning her revolution for carbohydrates. Then came the final blow. Aunt Melissa stepped inside the doorway. Madison, honey. What? We're going to the diner. Madison gaped. You're leaving? Well, we can't stay here. You drove with me. Derek has a car. Everyone looked at Derek. He shrugged. I have 7 seats. Mrs. Wilkins said. I call front. You are not sitting in front, Uncle Rick said. I'm 84. You get car sick. I get car sick in the back. You get car sick everywhere. Then drive smoothly, Richard. My name is Rick. I know what I said. Daniel had tears streaming down his face. The 21-person invasion began reorganizing into a diner expedition. Tara took the stand mixer with her. Brooke asked whether anyone wanted to split mozzarella sticks. Derek announced the first round of milkshakes was on him. Within 3 minutes, Operation Nerd Wedding had transformed into Operation Early Bird Special. The party bus driver came inside. Who's paying the overtime? Everyone looked at Madison. She closed her eyes. I took another sip of champagne. Numbers. Beautiful things, numbers. They always come due eventually. Madison stayed. I'll give her that. She sat at her assigned table between Trent and Mom, looking like someone had canceled her coronation. Dinner was magnificent. The chef served roasted chicken, herb potatoes, grilled vegetables, and a mushroom dish Priya still texts me about. There were speeches. My father kept his short. Priya's speech was not short. She told everyone about the first time I met Daniel and how I accidentally emailed him a spreadsheet titled date_options_final_v3_actual final.xlsx. Daniel stood up. In fairness, the formulas were excellent. People laughed. Then Trent surprised everyone by asking for the microphone. Madison looked terrified. He stood. I just want to say congratulations to Grace and Daniel. Normal enough. Then he added, and on behalf of my household, I would also like to congratulate Grace on successfully defending this venue from the largest unauthorized +1 event in North American history. The room exploded. Madison covered her face. I laughed until my sides hurt. Trent raised his glass. To Grace, may your marriage be strong, your boundaries stronger, and may my wife never be allowed to rent a party bus unsupervised again. Even Mom laughed. Madison did not. Yet, the cake arrived. My nephew ate 2 slices. Mrs. Wilkins texted Mom a photograph from the diner. All 21 rejected guests were squeezed into 3 booths. Derek was wearing a paper diner hat. Uncle Rick was eating pancakes. Tara's stand mixer sat in the booth beside her with its own milkshake. The caption read, "Best wedding after party ever." Mom showed me. I laughed so hard I had to hold on to Daniel. Then something unexpected happened. Madison looked at the picture. Her lips twitched. "No," she said. Trent leaned over. "What?" She put the stand mixer in the booth. Her shoulders started shaking. She tried to stop. She really tried. Then she burst out laughing. Not her performative laugh. Not the loud, polished one she used in restaurants. A real ugly laugh. Snorting. Tears. Face red. She looked at me. "You have to admit." I admit nothing. The stand mixer having a milkshake is funny. It ordered vanilla. That destroyed both of us. For about 30 seconds we were 12 and 14 again, laughing at something stupid until we couldn't breathe. Then Madison wiped her eyes. "I'm still mad at you. I can live with that. You really knew. For weeks. And you didn't say anything. You told me it would be legendary." She covered her face. "Oh God. It was. You're evil. I'm organized. That's worse. Things did not magically become perfect after my wedding. Real families don't work that way. Nobody gives one speech, and suddenly 20 years of bad habits evaporate under decorative lighting." Madison avoided me for nearly a month. Then tax season arrived. At 9:14 on a Tuesday morning, she texted me. "Nerd. Emergency." I stared at it, then replied, "My consulting rate is $175 per hour. Friends and family discount unavailable due to restructuring." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "Are you serious?" "Yes. You always do our taxes." "Correct. For free. Former policy. Grace." Madison. 10 minutes passed. Then, "Fine. Can you at least recommend someone cheaper?" I sent her the name of a competent local CPA. Progress. Mom stopped asking me to just fix everyone's paperwork. Dad started telling relatives to call a professional. Trent hired a bookkeeper for his business. And Madison? Madison changed slowly. Very slowly. Like a software update on airport Wi-Fi. She still teased me. But the weight comment stopped. The glasses comment stopped. The jokes about Daniel being out of my league stopped. 6 months after the wedding, she invited Daniel and me to dinner. No agenda, no emergency, no tax forms. After dessert, she looked at me. "I was awful about your wedding." "Yes." She frowned. "You could let me finish." "I'm supporting your accuracy." Daniel coughed into his napkin. Madison pointed at him. "And you encourage her." "Daily." She rolled her eyes, then got serious. "I really thought it would be funny." "I know. I didn't think about why it would be funny." That caught my attention. She twisted her wine glass. "I guess. You were always the responsible one. And I liked making you lose control because you never did." I waited. And honestly, go ahead. I was jealous. That shocked me more than the party bus. "Of what?" She gave me a look. "You." I laughed. She didn't. "You had your career, your own money. Daniel adores you. You knew exactly what kind of wedding you wanted and didn't care if anyone thought it was impressive." She looked uncomfortable. I spend a lot of time making things look impressive. That was probably the most self-aware sentence I had ever heard from her. "I thought if I could turn your wedding into a joke, then maybe I wouldn't feel like." She stopped. "Like what?" "Like the joke was me." I didn't rescue her from the sentence. Old Grace would have. Old Grace would have immediately said, "No, you're amazing." New Grace let silence exist. Finally I said, "You're not a joke." She looked relieved. But you did rent a party bus to ambush an accountant with unauthorized guests. She groaned. Can we never say that sentence again? No, Grace. I'm having it embroidered. She laughed, then reached across the table. I'm sorry, nerd. I looked at her hand, then at her. Try again. She sighed. I'm sorry, Grace. Better. A year after the wedding, Daniel and I celebrated our anniversary at the same greenhouse restaurant. Sophie recognized us immediately. Oh my God, plus 21. Apparently that was our legacy. Not bride and groom, not Grace and Daniel, plus 21. Marco came over to say hello. He still worked there. I remember your wedding, he said. I'm sure you do. I've been in hospitality 26 years. He leaned closer. Never had anyone attempt a plus 21 before. Daniel looked proud. My sister-in-law is an innovator. Marco smiled. We actually changed our RSVP language afterward. You did not. He disappeared, returned with a sample card. At the bottom, in small print, it said, only guests specifically named on the invitation may attend. Additional guests, including unapproved plus ones, are not permitted. I stared at it. You created a policy because of Madison? Your sister created a policy. I took a picture, obviously. Then I sent it to her. Her reply came 30 seconds later. I hate you. Then, also tell Marco I want royalties. I laughed. That's the thing about boundaries. I used to think setting them required some dramatic transformation. That I needed to become tougher, colder, thinner-skinned in some places and thicker-skinned in others. I thought I needed the perfect speech. The perfect comeback. The perfect moment where everyone who ever underestimated me would stare in stunned silence while thunder crashed behind me. Turns out sometimes a boundary is much less cinematic. Sometimes it's just, no. Sometimes it's a guest list. Sometimes it's refusing to add 21 chairs. Sometimes it's letting grown adults experience the natural consequence of believing an invitation is a group coupon. For most of my life, Madison called me nerd because she thought being careful made me weak. She thought my spreadsheets were ridiculous. My planning was ridiculous. My glasses were ridiculous. My body was ridiculous. My quietness was ridiculous. And for years, I let her make me feel like there was something embarrassing about being exactly who I was. Then she tried to humiliate me at my own wedding. She brought 21 people. I brought a guest list. Turns out the guest list won. And if you're wondering what happened to those 21 unwanted wedding guests, they still meet occasionally. I wish I were joking. Derek created a group chat called The Uninvited 21. Mrs. Wilkins is apparently the most active member. Last Christmas, I received a card from them. The front showed all 21 standing outside the diner. Tara was holding the stand mixer. Derek was wearing his burgundy tuxedo. Uncle Rick was holding pancakes. Mrs. Wilkins was in front, naturally. Inside, they had written, Dear Grace, thank you for not inviting us. Best wedding reception we never attended. Underneath were 21 signatures. And one final message from Mrs. Wilkins. Your recycling bins still need to be pulled in before 8 p.m. I laughed until my stomach hurt. Daniel framed the card. Madison threatened to burn it. I hung it directly beside our wedding photo. Because I'm Grace. I'm an accountant. I'm plus size. I wear glasses. I still make spreadsheets for vacations. My husband still thinks reconciled accounts are sexy. My sister occasionally still calls me nerd, but now she usually says it while asking me to help her beat Wordle. And I learned one very important lesson from my wedding. You can call me boring. You can call me uptight. You can rent a bus. You can invite your friends, your neighbors, your relatives, your ex-boyfriend, your hairdresser, your yoga instructor, and an 84-year-old HOA vigilante. But if your name is not on my spreadsheet, you are not getting chicken.